So this video is about editing recordings, and I want to talk about kind of what that means, go over a few different types that you'll run into, not really pros and cons, but I kind of want to talk about the morality of it, if there is such a thing. You know, what kind of effect does it have on different people? What are the issues of transparency behind making certain kinds of recordings? And then I've set up a little testy test. I've made some examples of recordings, and we can listen to them and see if we can hear the difference, what the differences are, kind of just for our own purposes. Because I think this is a really important topic. Sometimes I'll run into someone who I talk about this with, and they agree. They think, yeah, you know, in general, things kind of shouldn't be the way they are in terms of so many people being okay with editing their recordings. Most of the time I run into people who they don't even want to recognize that it's an issue at all. They just kind of say, yeah, you know, people do it. You don't have to say it is what it is. So I am interested in what you think. If you feel like you run into it, what your opinion is about it, if it's important to you, if it's not. Because I just think it's important. I don't think there's a right answer, but I do believe in not damaging your community. So I'll talk about what I mean by that, okay? So the first thing I want to say is I'm an artist. I fully support any artist who feels like they need to do certain things to achieve their art. If you're a musician, it probably means this has to sound a certain kind of way. I support that. That's what I do, right? Like, that's a big part of my work. You want to get in the window? Just for you, can't get in the window. So, and I really mean that, okay? So, for anybody that needs to use any kind of recording technique to represent their art in the specific way of their needs, because that's kind of the whole point of something being artistic in the first place, I support that. I don't think there are any boundaries as long as you're like not hurting someone or something like that, right? That is fine. What I have an issue with sometimes is the misrepresentation of how someone goes about achieving that sound. So I once heard someone use the term guitar dysmorphia. And I thought, yeah, that's it, you know? Like, you may have heard the term body dysmorphia. So I first heard this years ago in reference to women seeing, you know, supermodels in swimsuit magazines or whatever, and they were already ungodly thin. But then the people that made these magazines, they would edit their bodies to be even thinner than they actually were. So not only were you seeing someone who, if you can't naturally be like that, you probably shouldn't aspire to be like that anyway, but you're seeing somebody that has a body image that is not actually possible. Then, you know, people end up being bulimic and anorexic and things like that. So a lot of people, including myself, would say, don't do that. That's not good for the community. Okay? Guitar dysmorphia is the same thing. If people go about their, you know, making their recordings, and nowadays it has to do with, you know, putting on YouTube videos and putting stuff up online, where you see videos of people playing. If they are representing a sound that is not achievable in reality, it's not the way they actually sound. In some cases, no one can actually sound like that. It's guitar dysmorphia. And it's certainly affected my life. I mean, I'm here trying to say, like, oh, you know, betterment of the community and all that, but I don't even have to go that far. It's really affected my life. When you hear someone and you hear these perfect recordings, or you go online and you don't know who someone is, and they sound like this amazing player, it can make you feel bad about yourself. Well, I don't feel, you know, why can this person sound this good? Well, a lot of these people, the truth is that they can't. What you're seeing and hearing, it doesn't represent the process that they actually went through to achieve that. So I think you can do whatever you need to do to support your artistic goals, but transparency about how you achieve those, it's important if you feel like you have a responsibility to your community. And not everybody has to have that responsibility. The only thing with that is people aren't really going to act like they don't. People aren't going to say, well, I just do what I do to lift myself up and to make other people seem like they're not as good as me. Like no one has that approach. Nobody says that. They might do that. But we all like to act, like we're a beneficial part of the community. When I think when you look at people's actions, sometimes that's just certainly not the case. So that's why I'm saying misrepresenting your sound, I think you're abusing the process of editing. And I'm very much against that. So I do want to talk about kind of some ways to pick that out in case you've never run into that before or you don't know what the differences are. So we'll get to that. But I need to describe for people, I wanted to kind of just go over the general, I think this is the umbrella under which this topic kind of lies, which is that, and this is not just guitar, basically, and I'm saying transparency, this is a word I use euphemistically so that I don't upset people. But what I really mean is, when people lie, that's what I mean. Not telling the truth. If you don't tell the truth, it's a lie. If you don't tell all the truth, it's not the truth, and it's a lie. Some people don't believe that. That's just as plain as day, right? It doesn't mean that you can't lie. It doesn't mean that you can't not tell the truth. It just means that's what you're doing. But a lot of people that do that, they do not put those two things together, right? They say, no, I am telling the truth because of reasons. And the truth about that is, as people, we just can't work together. If you don't know what you're working with what you think you're working with, it's not reality. And we can't work together near as well, near as efficiently. We don't even know what's going on. We don't even know what someone has to offer. It's not like everybody will always know how people go about, getting their recordings and things like that. But I do think we have a responsibility, unless we want to just state that we don't. If we're going to act like we do, we have a responsibility to not give a false impression. And it's not that difficult, It would not be that hard to make an effort to be transparent about your processes. And there's absolutely no shame in that. I'm confused. Sometimes I talk to people and they just don't want to admit that they edit their recordings. And I just think, what are you afraid of? Why does it even matter? You have to get this sound, so that's what's most important. You got it. Who cares? Are you afraid that I will think that you'll think that I think that you're not as good as you think you are? I guess the answer is yes. I guess that's the answer. So, but, when people think they're good guitarists, I also think, there's some people that you should listen to. If you want to start comparing yourself to people, that kind of never ends. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Just matters about how we want to go about our business. So, in terms of editing, I want to say what it is in case people don't know, and then I want to outline a few different types that you're going to come across. So, a lot of times online, YouTube or whatever, Instagram, you're going to see a fingerstyle guitarist sit down and play a piece. And it looks like they sit down, they play the piece from beginning to end. And it looks like one take. It means they sat down, them or somebody else hit record, started the piece, played it to the end. Okay? So, and a lot of people think that's what musicians do. A lot of people think that's what bands do. When bands go into the studio, they all get their gear, somebody hits record, and they play the song from beginning to end, right? A lot of people think that, even though that's far from the case. So if a recording is edited, then basically it's not being recorded in one take from beginning to end. So a common approach is to make the recording first, and it's edited, so you record parts at a time and then put it together to where it sounds like it's one take. Then you shoot the video. And as you shoot the video, you're playing to the recording that you already have, so it lines up, and you edit all that together to make a nice, neat package, okay? It's a very commonly used approach. Now, and there are pros and cons to any type of approach, okay? One take, editing, whatever. I'm going to go over those in a different video. This video is more about, what do you think about these processes? You know, are they important? And I'm saying, yeah, they're important. You know, do what you want, but it's important to be who you are, not look like who you want to look like. Okay. So if you're going to edit, there's two main approaches that I see. The first approach is horizontal editing. I just came up with these words, but I call it horizontal editing. That means, let's say you have a piece that has 5 sections. You record maybe the first section, and you do passes until you get a take where you're like, yeah, that's the best, no mistakes, it was clean, I want that take, okay? Then you record the second section, same thing, right? Third section, okay? So you get your best take of multiple different sections, and then you piece them together in a horizontal fashion. And that's horizontal editing. I have done that, I think, a total of 3 times out of all the recordings that I've made. And the first time was I just wanted to try it. You know, I'd never done it before. And I was pretty surprised by what I found. But that's one way of doing it. Now, what I have to say about that is it's still not reality. But from what I hear, all levels of players, I mean, there are world famous players that record this way. And it doesn't always have to be like, well, you know, I want to get the cleanest take. If you go see a great guitarist in concert, they're going to play amazing in concert. So basically, someone could set up a mic and hit record, and that could be an album, you know. So I feel like maybe people like that they're after something different. They want a certain feel or a certain flair or just something when they're like, yeah, this is the take, and then they piece those together to get their absolute best version. I think that's awesome, you know. I mean, you're doing something even people like them may not be able to do otherwise. I still think they should say it if they don't. I still think people shouldn't have the impression they just sat down, played this from beginning to end, because even for them, they wouldn't actually sound that way. But I can definitely see reasons for doing it. When I have done that, oh yes, I sound better than I would in the one take, okay? And you get to choose and make sure you get the best, really absolute best version out of what you want to do. But that's not where editing ends. There's also vertical editing, what I call vertical editing. Vertical editing people, I just don't like them. Me and them are never going to get along. I'm just saying it right now. If you vertically edit, me and you do not have anything in common. I don't care if we both play the guitar. We ain't playing the same instrument. Vertical editing means, you know, when you play fingerstyle guitar, one of the big advantages is that you are playing multiple parts at once. Okay? So if you vertically edit, instead of recording a section, you record individual parts. And then you stack them up, you multi-track them, play them at the same time, and then you play the whole thing, and it sounds like the piece with all the parts, but in a way that you could not possibly achieve otherwise. So you do that for your whole song or piece, then you sit down and you play the piece with that audio, and then that is your end product. And to me, this is crossing the line. When you vertically edit like that, and we're about to see the difference, there are just things that happen that are not possible. The way that the frequencies interact or don't interact, the sustain that you get, the clarity of the voices is not possible. And this is what tips me off. I feel like, and I wanted to do this test because I thought, are you just biased or can you actually catch it? I feel like I can catch it real quick because it just sounds artificial. I'm just like, I'll listen to some of the greatest guitarists that have ever lived and they don't sound this way. There's a pristineness here that is just, it just sounds otherworldly. So to represent yourself that way and then act like, you know, if you want to do one of those videos where you're doing the shots of you playing all the parts and you make a collage, that's different. Because you're literally saying, look, I'm playing all the parts. Look how cool I am. You know, those are fun and cool. I don't know if I've ever done one of those. I think I've done one. But that's cool. That was a thing for a while, right? So that's fine. But you're not being, you're still being transparent if you do that. Just to say, oh, this is me playing one fingerstyle guitar piece, when in reality it's 2 or 3 or 4 tracks, is ridiculous. It is not living in reality. So some people, like me, we think we can tell. And I'm never going to listen to anybody that does that. Like I said, I don't got nothing in common with them. We do not play the same instrument. We just don't. But a lot of people who don't know any differently are going to think that's the real thing. And they want to sound like that. They can't sound like that. Why? Well, their notes ring for such a long time. Well, they don't get any buzzes. How come they can do this stretch? And it just sounds so easy? Because it's not real. So why would you even give an opportunity for those types of things to exist? All you have to do is say, you know, this is how I got this recording, right? But when I run across these people, I mean, they're the kind of people that it's like, that's probably the least likely thing they're going to do, is admit to it. So those are kind of the 3 different types. One take you can do horizontally edited, you can do vertically edited. Now, and that's my opinion on it. Again, I want to know if you think this is an issue. If you care, have you ever heard a recording and you're like, yeah, this is definitely tracked, like stack tracked, because I can just tell it normally doesn't sound like that. You know, one time I found a really interesting thread, and I'm not going to throw names around because I don't care about that. And someone was making a claim that a world famous classical guitarist, someone you'd probably know, was known for doing this. They said, you want to know this person's secret? And it was something like, record the melodies first, then the bass lines. And that's all they said. So then it became this huge thread, and people were just furious. How dare you accuse this person, this great pillar of the classical guitar community, which they are. It's kind of scary. So I was like, why would this person just be a troll? But then later on they said, look, go to this timestamp. Here's what's going on in the piece. And he's stretching between this note and that note. Now you tell me if that's possible. He was like, this note is still ringing, while at the same time he stretches to that one. And I was like, okay. So I looked at it, I got on my guitar, and I thought, oh my God, he's right. It's overdubbed. So that just goes to show, you know, human temptation is a thing. It doesn't matter how good you are. You know, I guess sometimes being afraid to be transparent about things, or our fears of being transparent about things are a thing. Because I'm thinking this person is already like one of the best guitar players that's basically ever lived. You know, why are they concerned about that? And the answer is just that they are. It was real. So who knows how much this goes on. But that's no excuse for us to say, well, then I'm going to do that too. I guess what I want to say here is that we can so be better than that. That, you know, if you think you're going to learn to play a certain way and no one is going to criticize you, that is never going to happen. Great players get criticized more than you or me. It's because more eyes are on them, and a lot of people just want to take them down. So it doesn't even matter. It's not about that. We can behave better though. I don't think we have to be afraid of those things. Okay? So that's probably me getting on my high horse enough about that. But I do really feel strongly about it, and I don't feel like I really have people to talk to about it. People don't seem to have strong opinions about it, and I actually think it's a really big deal. It's one of those things that, like, it can have a big snowball effect, and because you never know who's listening to your stuff, who knows what kind of effect it could have, right? So why wouldn't you just do everything you can do to not potentially damage your community. I don't know. So, because I know sometimes I realize I can be biased about things, I wanted to do a little testy test. And if you want, you can do it with me too. So, the last arrangement that I made, or that I recorded, was actually an edited recording. It was one of the 3 that I've ever done in my life. But it was horizontally edited. It was not vertically edited. I promise. But I said in the info, I forget how I worded it, but I put that in there. It was 5 different takes, and I said that. Like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. It was just the process I had to do. I decided to do that. Anyway, so that was the last arrangement that I put out, Vermilion Part 2 by Slipknot. It was on the 7th string. So it has this really difficult passage in it that ends up having 4 different voices. So I thought that would be a really good test. And we can use that to see, can you tell a difference? What kind of difference can you tell? If I had vertically edited this and thrown it in there, would I have been able to get away with it? Because I really wanted to see. And then I also want to know, when I think I'm hearing this, can I really pick up on this? Or am I just not trusting someone in particular, or what's going on there? So what I've done is I've recorded that passage in really 3 different ways, but we'll start with 2. The first one is just me. Well, you won't know which one is the first one, but the first time I recorded it is me playing all the voices just normally, right? Like I did on the actual recording, right? Because it's horizontally edited, not vertically edited. So I did play all the voices at once. So that's one recording. And then another recording is vertically edited, the kind that really makes me mad. But I just wanted to see, okay, what's this going to be like? What would it sound like? Maybe it sounds so good, I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta play this way right now. This is my art, and I'm gonna lie about it like everybody else. So that's another take. And I played all the voices individually, so we can compare them back to back and see if there's a difference. Okay, so here's how it's gonna go. You're gonna hear both versions. So first you're gonna hear Chappie's version. So you're gonna see a picture of Chappie. He's my baby boy cat. This guy, he's a white cat. So you'll hear his version, and then you'll think, is this edited, or is it one take? Okay. Then you'll hear Yolandi's version. It's my baby girl. She's a calico one. And then you'll hear her version. So then you'll say, okay, is this one take, or is this one edited? So, okay, let's listen to the 2 versions, and then see if you can tell what's what. So, what do you think? Which one is which? So the answer is Chappie's version was, say it with me, edited. It was vertically edited. That was the vertically edited version. That was the first version you heard. That means that Yolandi's version was the one take, right? Now, this was pretty interesting for me. there were some things I kind of thought, yeah, this is what I thought, but it was not quite a big a difference as I thought. And like my first experience with doing an edited recording, a horizontally edited recording, there were some difficulties about doing the vertical recording that I didn't anticipate. So before I talk about them, I made one more version. It's like edited, unedited, edited, unedited. It's the same length, but it switches back and forth, kind of with each repetition of that theme. So listen to this and see if you can if the differences kind of stick out, and then we'll talk about them. Okay, so that was, more back-to-back type of comparison. There's a couple of things that I think give the vertically edited recording away. And then again, just to reiterate, if you're doing horizontal editing, you're not going to run into this because you're still actually playing all the music, like yourself. You're just piecing together the sections, okay? This is only in a vertically edited scenario. Two things mainly. One is the sustain. I really noticed a difference in the sustain. There's more sustain in the vertically edited recording. And then, I think one of the reasons is because you can do that. You're just holding one note at a time instead of a few more and then shifting or whatever if you're playing everything at once. But also, the guitar itself, it doesn't have to support 2 or 3 or 4 notes. It can only support one. So that whole top can go towards doing that, and it's going to make more sustain. To me, it kind of sounds more like a guitar quartet, sort of, because I'm also used to hearing that, and it has kind of like a bell type effect. So that's something that I feel like gives it away. There's too much sustain. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's just because I'm so used to not hearing that amount of sustain that it's pretty obvious, right? And the other thing is frequency interaction. Like, this is really, really obvious on electric guitar with distortion. Like if you're into bands like Metallica or groups like that where they record a solo and then a harmony line with it, they always do those on 2 separate tracks. Even if they could play them at the same time, they don't. Because if you do that, you get this really muddy sound because the frequencies are just all messing with each other. But if you do them on their own track, you don't have that, and it's super clean and clear. So same thing here, just not to quite an obvious degree. There is that interaction of the frequencies that would happen in real time when there's more than one note played at the same time is not there. It's not existent when it's on separate tracks. And it just, that to me gives it a pristine quality that, again, it just sounds artificial. It's not quite real, not quite human. So those are things that I heard on the vertically edited recording that don't happen on the one take recording. But, it's not quite as straightforward as that. I did feel like the one take recording had more warmth. I don't know if that's because I'm biased, but I just felt that way. I felt more from the guitar, like more body, and that's pretty interesting. I like that. That's something that I want to get when I play, and maybe that's based on, the stuff that you're playing at the same time. It helps all that happen. Maybe when the frequencies intermingle, it helps give it more body. I think that makes sense. But also on the one take recording, it was more rhythmic. When you have like a 2-note chord, it's not really a big deal to play them at the same time, right? But when you have to play 2 tracks like that at the same time, that was hard. I think, one of the things that may have given it away was the timing. On the edited recording, the timing is a little bit off. I could have spent more time on it to try and get it like dead center. And if I was going to do that for something I wanted to sound the best, I would have to do that. That actually is kind of challenging. So I guess I got to give it to these douchebags. They may do the vertical edited recordings, but they got to make sure their timing is really right. So it does develop that skill, right? So that was pretty interesting. And then anything that you want to do that manipulates the timing, like at the end of that passage, I slowed down a little bit. Well, if you're just doing everything together, it's pretty simple. You just slow down a little bit. But if you're doing 3 parts at once, that becomes really complicated. And if you've ever played in a duo or a trio or a quartet, you really got to work that stuff out. You really have to learn how to feel something together and to follow someone else, so that when they slow down, you're slowing down right with them, and you can do all those types of things. It's tricky. Where if you're just playing by yourself, you just kind of think about it and you just kind of do it. So, I was a little surprised they weren't as black and white as I thought it would be. So it made me think. I think my ears can recognize it. It's the unnatural sustain, and it's the pristineness of the frequencies not interacting with each other that give it away. So I probably can't catch it in every scenario, but certainly there are times where as soon as someone starts playing, I'm just like, yeah, this just doesn't sound natural. It doesn't sound real. But I was surprised to find that they were not super, super different, more similar than I thought. And also, I kind of thought there would be things I liked about the edited recording better, but there really weren't. The body of the sound for the one take, that's what the guitar sounds like to me. And when you put that together with like the timing being spot on and you not even having to put any extra focus into that, it's just like the way that you play, I like that sound better. So I don't know. I would be, of course, interested to see what you think. Or if you've done this too and you've had to make the choice, or if you have a different approach or whatever it may be. I've heard of all kind of things. I've even heard of people miming to a recording of a great guitarist and attempting to pass it off as their own playing. So you never know. I also think we shouldn't do that, but maybe I'll save that for another video. But anyway, I just thought this would be fun. And I think it's something that in this day and age, with all the stuff on social media, with so many people's ability to put out content and recordings and whatever, that's easier than it's ever been, and I assume that's only going to keep going that direction. I think it's important for us to know in that way, just as in other ways with other things, that things are not always as they seem. And here's a common way that they won't be. Here's a few different ways that they won't be. Some are, worse than others, I would say, in terms of being deceptive. But, we probably can't do anything about Homeboy that does that, right? Homeboy's already decided he's going to be that way. So I think it's like, well, what are we going to do? Do you want to represent yourself that much? Do you want to represent yourself that way, Or can you get out of the way of all that and just say, I'm going to do my best, but I'm not going to do anything that's going to misrepresent myself. I'm actually proud of what I can do. I didn't play that one take thing perfectly, but I'm proud of the way that I can play. I work really hard. I try my very best. I've never tried to make a mistake on purpose. That's all I can ask for. So I don't need it to be any other way. In any way that it's not perfect or it has flaws or whatever. It's just the way that it is. It's part of what makes me me as a musician. So that is something that I would want to encourage, would be for people to think about that, and then hopefully make a choice that they know without a doubt doesn't have potential to damage the guitar community and the people that are going to listen to their work.